everyone, my name is Amanda Mirabella, and I'm going to review my annotated bibliography project for ADE 5266. This is a review of some articles that I've compiled together on the topic of teacher satisfaction and retention. I chose this topic because I'm very familiar with, having to make the decision to stay in the classroom or leave the classroom and what that would look like for me personally. So this is a topic that's very dear to my heart. At first when I did this project, it was kind of all over the place because I had to kind of dig deep to figure out what I believe the roots of this issue could be. And a lot of the articles that you'll see, or the information that I provided rather, it's lacking another side of research. So I don't believe that any of this is completely founded just yet in the link, but these are a lot of things that I have an idea that they could be related. So I'm looking at this project in terms of, in the future, what could I do to use this information? So I could go out and do a study on the topic of teacher satisfaction and retention based off of the information that I found in these articles. So there's a few pieces of the puzzle that are missing, but I'll go ahead and try to bring that up whenever I see that it is necessary. So, case in point, here we go. So I compiled three main components here. And these three components kind of came from the articles that I selected. So I wanted to make them more cohesive here to give you a little bit of an outline. So first, I focused on job satisfaction. Secondly, I focused on incentives versus efficacy. So do monetary incentives create an effective teacher? And that's an example of a topic that is missing some research there. So on the flip side, we might want to go back and find out the teachers that left versus stayed. Were they more effective versus ineffective? And were they compensated for their, efficacy? And then the final topic is working conditions. So in black there in italics up top, I said a disclaimer that it is not my opinion that these are the only components that contribute to teacher satisfaction or retention. So I kind of mentioned that already, but there are far more reasons why a teacher may stay or leave the profession that can and should be explored. So I'm not limiting it to just these three topics. This is just what I compiled from my annotated bibliography report. So in terms of job satisfaction, when thinking of teacher education satisfaction, and retention, it was only natural for me to seek information regarding the actual job satisfaction reported by teachers. So here's some information on this topic. So in 2008, there was a survey that reported 77% of paraprofessionals that believed they were respected in the classroom and seen as an equal by the teacher in the classroom. So I chose to find an article on paraprofessionals because I personally believe that they are also educators. So that was relative to my topic. Secondly, professional development and achievement brings satisfaction to teachers. So that was something that was founded in a 2004 study. Third, a study completed in 2008 found that teachers who lacked obstacles in their classroom were more satisfied than those who experienced more obstacles. So an obstacle could be considered an unruly class, an underachieving class. You might have a class with a lot of students with special needs that are underrepresented and do not have, an appropriate amount of assistance there in your classroom, and several other things, down to even how your administration interacts with you. And then the final point here for job satisfaction was that a study in 2014 found that teacher professional communities, so PLCs, have a significantly positive association with teacher satisfaction. So that's a really interesting fact there. And so in the topic of incentives versus efficacy, I asked the question, does performance pay contribute to more satisfied and effective educators? And how does teacher job satisfaction contribute to overall effectiveness of teaching? So according to a recent 2020 study, there is a very small impact of performance pay to teachers' VAM scores. Efficacy was not greatly impacted in this study, and that's interesting to know because a lot of times all you hear is teachers are not paid enough and teachers deserve more money, which is 100% true in my personal opinion. But it's interesting to see from this study that it, at the end of the day, didn't really matter. What mattered to teachers was an intrinsic sort of motivation that can be achieved through other modes of incentives rather than monetary ones. So that could be positive recognition, it could be professional development, it could be so many other things other than money, which is, don't get me wrong, 100% earned, and teachers do deserve more pay in that regard. However, it wasn't so much of a motivation for leaving the classroom in this study specifically. And finally, in regards to working conditions are extremely important to teacher satisfaction and can directly impact retention. This was the largest section of my compiled information. I believe that this is one of the most important factors in whether a teacher or educator is satisfied with their job, with their career, and whether they choose to stay or leave the classroom. So first off, a positive job satisfaction was reported by educators who were provided with ample professional development opportunities. That was interesting because if you think of two different teachers, one has professional development opportunities and one does not, there's some initial thoughts behind that. So behind one door, it's professional development is extra work for me. But behind the other door is that professional development helps me to become a better educator and make my job and my life a lot easier because I'm learning things that can help me do my job better and to handle things better. So it was interesting to learn that positive job satisfaction was related to professional development specifically. Secondly, from 2003 to 2006, here are just some specific examples of what teachers were reported to do a lot more likely than other professionals. So teachers were reported to have done more work from home. They were reported to have worked more on Sundays than other professionals, and they were more likely to hold multiple jobs. So this is another example of a point that is not completely finished being researched or related to job satisfaction or retention, but these are some things that make me more inclined to believe that they are directly related to them. So if I were to go out and complete a study, I would use this information in my report. So next, there's not much of a perceived difference in working conditions between educators of charter schools versus traditional public schools. However, charter school teachers were reported to believe they had a heavier workload than traditional public school teachers. They also reported that they believe to have more influence over their school's policies. So again, not something that's directly related to teacher satisfaction, but if I were going to create a report on what makes a job more satisfactory than, for teachers than others, I would need this information to help me compare. And then finally, this was some good information here in the Reitman and Karj article. 6 powerful traits of schools that were found to have 100% effectively retained teachers in a 2019 study. They had these 6 traits: individual relationships, pedagogical knowledge, teacher perception of their perceived competence, so teachers were well aware that they could do it and they were able to do it. They had mentoring, and they had professional learning, which we spoke about earlier, and they were able to professionally reflect on their career and on their job on a daily basis. So working conditions is extremely important for satisfaction in the area of teaching, and it can impact whether a teacher wants to stay in the profession or whether they need to leave. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope that you might have learned something regarding teacher retention and satisfaction in their jobs. And here's a list of my references.